So the first thing we're going to compare is a Starbucks drink, and this is going to be kind of a coffee related. And what we're going to do is actually look at the most popular Starbucks drink out there. People talk about Starbucks, the first thing that they come to mind is potentially one of their seasonal drinks, but other than that, I feel like the vanilla latte, just a basic vanilla latte, is probably got to be the most standard go-to for most people. So let's take a look at the nutritional info for that, and let's compare it to a soda perhaps. Alright, so looking on the Starbucks website, I went with the Starbucks Blonde Vanilla Latte. Pretty simple, basic, something people would have for breakfast. And as we can see, for the Grande 16 ounces, they're using 2% milk, 4 pumps of syrup, 2 shots of espresso. And look at that nutrition. Well, for 16 ounces, 250 calories, 6 of those coming from the fat, from the milk, obviously. 37 grams of carbs, 35 of those being from sugar, guys. That's crazy. 35 grams of sugar, obviously from the vanilla syrup, a little bit from the milk, but 250 calories for this standard thing someone would have for breakfast. So looking at the Pepsi, got the same amount of calories, and keep in mind this is for a 20-ounce bottle. That's usually like a standard drink someone would have, and usually like a 16-ounce cup of coffee is a standard coffee someone would have, even though they are not the standard 8-ounce drink size. So keep that in mind. So 20 ounces, we got 250 calories, and look at the total sugars. 68 grams of sugar in the entire bottle. That is absolutely insanity. Obviously, there's no protein or fat. So a little bit step up in the coffee version because you have the protein from the milk. Actually, 12 grams of protein, so not bad there, but still 250 calories overall. And when we're talking about maintaining weight and just overall weight loss, we know that calories are the most important thing in reducing overall weight. So this is super, super important because people may not realize that, hey, their vanilla latte they're drinking has as much calories, and it does have quite a bit of sugar too. So we'll keep that in mind, and let's look at our next object. Next type of breakfast food that we're going to look into is sugary cereal. Sugary cereal is something that is consumed by numerous individuals throughout the lifespan, but specifically young children have a kind of gravitational pull towards wanting sugary cereal for breakfast. I myself really enjoy sugary cereal, except I usually eat it at the end of the day as kind of a dessert. But what we're going to look at is comparing it to a fruity candy. And this was kind of something that was hard to think about, of like what would be a good comparison. But I feel like sugary cereal, a lot of these are fruity, like Captain Crunch, Fruit Loops, numerous different ones. So I was thinking, let's take one of those like movie theater sized boxes of Sour Patch Kids, and we'll compare it to a bowl of let's say Captain Crunch, for example. And when I'm going to talk about a bowl of cereal, we're not going to go with a typical serving size, because a typical serving size of cereal is usually only about 3/4 a cup. Usually individuals, when they're eating cereal, they're going to do probably at least 2 servings, sometimes more, depending on how big the bowl is. So for the sake of this video, we're going to do 2 servings, which would be roughly about a cup and a half of cereal, and we're going to do 1 cup of milk, 1% milk also in that cereal, as well as our comparison, because I don't think it's completely fair to avoid the milk too, and that will give this cereal a little upper hand with some protein. So let's go ahead and we'll take a look at the Captain Crunch with milk first, and then we will look into the Sour Patch Kids in a box and compare them. So I honestly forgot that Captain Crunch came in regular Captain Crunch, and then they have the berries version. So for this purposes, we are going to focus on the Captain Crunch berries version, just because that does have a little bit of a fruity kind of taste compared to what we're going to do with the Sour Patch Kids. So this is the one we're going to use. And we'll look right into the nutritional info right now. So as we can see, they actually did already add a milk option for a 2/3 cup of skim milk, but we're not going to use that one. So we're going to focus on, again, a 1.5 cup serving, which would bring it up to 225 calories just from the cereal. And we would have 48 carbs with the 1.5 cup, 24 grams of sugar, 3 grams of protein, and 3 grams of fat. But then, of course, if we add on to it, we're going to add a 1 cup of 1% milk. That's what we talked about. And adding that would add a couple more grams of fat. So this is in total with a cup of 1% milk and 1.5 servings of Captain Crunch, 5 grams of fat, 61 grams of carbs, and 11 grams of protein. And the sugar does get added, bumped up a little bit with the milk. However, this is natural sugar from the milk, so I'm not really counting that compared to the added sugar that is in the cereal. So now looking at the Sour Patch Kids, if we look at the nutrition info, the calories is going to be 370 calories, and that's going to be for the whole box. That's if you eat the 2.5 servings in the whole box, which, let's be honest, most of us are going to do. So 270 calories versus the 325 calories in the bowl of cereal. And then we have 92 grams of carbohydrates for all of it, 64 grams of sugar from that, no fat and no protein. So comparing that to the cereal, 61 carbs versus 92 grams of carbs, and 24 grams of sugar in the cereal versus 64 grams of sugar. Obviously, there is more sugar and more carbs in the candy. And that kind of makes sense since there is no fat and no protein. So that is one of the step-ups that the cereal has, is that there is a little bit of protein, but that is from the milk, that isn't from the cereal itself. There is a little bit of fat that's kind of negligible on both sides. The big thing here is looking at the sugar intake, and there still is quite a bit of carbs when you're talking about an overall balanced diet. So comparing these two, obviously the Sour Patch Kids aren't the best, but really the Captain Crunch isn't much better. Both of these are not going to fill you up. They don't really have a lot of fiber, don't really have a lot of nutrients. A lot of the nutrients are actually coming from the milk that's added to the cereal. So, in all, that's kind of the comparison between these two, and we'll move right into our next topic. What we're going to do is compare the likes of French toast with a Hershey's chocolate candy bar, kind of the original and what everyone thinks of when it comes to just chocolate. So when it comes to the original Hershey's chocolate bar, we got 210 calories, and in those 210 calories, we're looking at 13 grams of fat, 26 grams of carbs, 24 of those grams coming from sugar, and 3 grams of protein. This honestly isn't that bad of a breakdown, and when you consider that most people only eat one chocolate bar at a time, typically, it's not the worst kind of treat to add into your diet. Now here's where things get a little crazy. So for the original French toast from IHOP, we have 740 calories, 36 grams of fat, 84 grams of carbs, and 20 grams of protein. Now that's an outstanding amount of calories and fat and just overall nutrients. And I'm unsure if they add the butter and syrup that most people would probably be adding to these types of foods. 36 grams of fat is pretty high in my mind, just for the French toast. So I feel like they might have added the butter. However, I don't think that would include the syrup. And most people aren't choosing sugar-free syrup. They're choosing the full sugar one, where it has 210 calories per quarter cup, which is a lot of sugar. So comparing these two, you can see that you might be eating 3 Hershey's bars basically worth of calories and fat and sugar in just your breakfast alone, and most of us could reason that that probably isn't the healthiest. You thought those numbers were surprising, the next ones might surprise you too. We're gonna look at one of my favorite junk foods of all time, the Krispy Kreme donut. Donuts specifically, but I feel like Krispy Kreme just has something down, especially with their original glaze, which is what we're gonna look at. And we're gonna compare that to cupcakes, and I was kind of looking through a few different ones, but I decided to just go with the Hostess pre-made cupcakes, the ones that come in individually wrapped pouches. So let's get into it. So when we're looking at those Hostess cupcakes, we're looking at 170 calories for one cake, 6 grams of fat, 29 grams of carbs, 19 grams being sugar, and 1 gram of protein. And the reason why I picked cupcakes and donuts is because usually when we're eating these, we'll tend to eat more than one. Just because after you eat one, you're like, oh, that was good. It doesn't really hit you that hard. So that's what we're looking at for cupcakes. Not overall too bad. Let's look into the donuts. So of course the famous Krispy Kreme glaze, what everyone loves. Looking at 190 calories for one donut, 11 grams of fat, and 22 grams of carbs, 10 of those being sugar, and 3 grams of protein. So comparatively, they're actually very similar into overall calories and nutrients, which is kind of my point of this, is that these two things are considered different meals. So donuts usually are considered a breakfast meal, and cupcakes would be considered a dessert. But when you look at the nutrition and the calories of them, they're basically the same thing, and that's kind of scary, and especially in our day and age where we're overeating these things in general. Last but not least, we're going to round it out with, again, two probably really famous and favorite desserts and breakfast options for you, and that is going to be the muffin and the brownie. And I chose these two because they're kind of similar consistency. They're both kind of cakey type items, and for the most part, you're not really adding icing or anything onto it. So I figured they'd be kind of similar. So let's look at the. So I decided to go to Walmart and just pick a typical muffin from their website. So this was the triple chocolate version. We're looking at 350 calories, 17 grams of fat, 47 grams of carbs, 28 of those being sugar, and 5 grams of protein. And for a lot of you that have eaten a muffin, you know that these muffins are very, very large. And for most of you, you're probably going to end up eating most, if not all of it. And that's an insanely large amount of calories when you're adding that onto your other options. Maybe you're having some juice and a banana with it. So you're looking at quite a few calories in really something that's not overall that filling. And rounding it out, we're going to look at the brownies. And I chose the Cosmic Brownies for this. Such a classic. These are so delicious. And I feel like everyone's heard of these. And we're looking at 280 calories for a pack of these, 11 grams of fat, 42 grams of carbs, 24 of those being sugar, and 2 grams of protein. So comparatively, the Cosmic Brownies are a little bit less calories, but keep in mind they are a little bit smaller. So when you look at them per gram, you're probably going to be similar in calories and overall nutrition. But again, this brings me back to the point of brownies are usually a treat food. Muffins are usually considered a breakfast food. But when you look at them in the same regard, they're basically the same thing. I hope you enjoyed that video, guys. Thanks for watching. Hopefully it kind of changed your perspective on looking at breakfast in a new way. I know when I started looking at typical American diet patterns and noticed that, a lot of these breakfast options are very high in sugar, very low satiety, as in they don't really fill you up and make you feel full, and not a lot of overall nutrients that are going to provide you good energy through the day. I kind of noticed like, hey, that's because most of these breakfast items are actually desserts. So maybe that'll kind of change your framework. If not, maybe it'll kind of steer you to have similar portions, maybe have the donut instead, and then have the banana in place of that other half. It's kind of up to you. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. Please leave a comment if you have anything to add. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll make sure to catch you in that next one. Remember, I'm here to not just help you survive in your life, but thrive.